And welcome to another thrilling episode of the RZR Fantasy Football Podcast. This show is hosted by myself, Nick Faber, and my main man, Jon Valencia. What's good, Jon?
What's up, Nick? It's great to be back this week's episode. I missed you last week, but you and Connor definitely held it down.
Yeah, it was tough without you. Like I said, you were there in spirit, and
Sure.
we missed you, but we're glad to have you back this week. Just me and Jon this week. We're going to be talking some good fantasy football. As always, we let the fans choose what they want to hear. Jon, what the fans choose this week?
New faces, different places.
Old faces and new places. I love it, Jon. On the game today. You can tell this is going to be a great episode. As always, we are talking PPR redraft. And no, we're not talking about Bill Cosby. Like I said, we're talking old places, or what is it? Old faces and new places. I can't even get it right now. There's a lot of free agency. There was a lot of trades that happened throughout the offseason, right? And we want to kind of discuss, we want to kind of cipher through and figure out who's going to be the Eric Ebron and who's going to be the Dion Lewis. Who are you going to want to start every week and who are you going to want to fade every week? One of the guys we should start out with, because he was one of the most talked about players of the offseason, was Mr. Antonio Brown. Now, this is an old face going to a new place. He's got a lot of years in him, right? A big veteran going to a team that seems likely to not succeed this year. It doesn't seem like they're trying to win it all this year. But don't tell Antonio Brown that, because you know he's going to go out there and he's going to ball. I think Oakland really is a perfect fit for Antonio Brown. Derek Carr has an arm. Derek Carr can whip that ball downfield, and Antonio Brown can run past any defender there is. If you give Antonio Brown double coverage in Oakland, I still don't care. I can guarantee Carr is going to find him a hefty amount of times this year. But they did add Tyrell Williams. So is he going to be more of the deep threat, and Antonio Brown's going to be less of a deep threat than he was in Pittsburgh and Oakland? Is he going to be the same? What are you expecting from Antonio Brown this year? And do you think he's going to be a viable top 5, top 10 wide receiver?
In terms of usage, I think he won't be utilized as much as a deep threat. You know, he's getting a little bit older. Not to say that his play is regressing at all. He's still a phenomenal player, but just not the type of athlete we once saw with him. And as you said, they add Tyrell Williams, who he's been one of the most underrated deep threats in the league, I think, over the past 2 or 3 years. With Antonio Brown, I mean, he was wide receiver 5 last year, which I think a lot of people forget just because of how the whole situation flamed out in Pittsburgh. And I think that's really the only thing holding him back is his personality. I mean, you saw him quit on his team last year at Pittsburgh, going into Week 17 with a playoff berth on the line. He just quits on his team. So if things start to go south in Oakland, I just wonder, is he going to do the same thing? Is he going to be a guy who can ride it out through the thick of things through a tough season, which is anticipated in Oakland? So that's really the only thing I think holding him back. But again, we saw Amari Cooper. He struggled mightily last year in that wide receiver 1 role in Oakland, and then he goes to Dallas and flourishes. So is that something we're going to see as well in that offense? I do like Derek Carr. I think he's, for the most part, underrated quarterback. He gets a lot of flack at times just because of some games he'll just flame out and look terrible. But overall, I think he's solid. But I think there's definitely risk there with Brown. But on the flip side, he very well could just come out and prove to be that top 5 wide receiver, maybe even like top 3 guy that he once was. But just looking at it right now, his ADP at 2.07, which I don't think is bad. I think that's a pretty fair price for him. But you have to select him knowing there's tons of risk involved.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Antonio Brown. He's going to Oakland where Derek Carr will push the ball to his lead receiver. We saw it with Amari Cooper. We saw it for the first few years. Obviously, something changed drastically in the 4th year before he got traded to Dallas. And I want to be a fly on the wall inside that locker room last year. I want to know what was going on between those two, because it just seems like it wasn't that Amari Cooper wasn't good, and it wasn't that Derek Carr, in my opinion, wasn't good. Like, he's a good quarterback, and he can get the ball to his receivers, but there was just something going on between their chemistry that got him out of there. It got him out of there. But I think AB can jump in there and take a lot of targets, which is good for fantasy, get you a lot of volume. But what you said, and I want to jump back to, is extremely smart. And the biggest worry for me is, say they are 1 and 5. Say they are 3 and 8. Is he going to continue to play when you're in the fantasy football playoffs or the stretch, the home stretch of your regular season when it really matters? Are we going to see AB kind of give up, take an injury, and take the money? Now, I'm not saying that's what he would do, but it's concerning that what's kind of what we saw last year. I would have never accused him of this or said that this would ever be a thought in my mind until week 16, 15 of last year when we saw this exactly play out because he wasn't happy. And if he's a winner, he's a competitor. He's never been on a team that wasn't in the playoffs or in the playoff contention, at least in my memory. So put him on a team that's completely different where they're not going to be playoff contending. That could see a whole different persona. If you're sitting there looking for your first wide receiver in the late second round, are you going with Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen, T.Y. Hilton? Who is your guy there, John?
I think it'd probably be between Mike Evans and T.Y. Hilton. I probably would lean Evans just because I love the potential of that offense under Bruce Arians. I think Jameis Winston takes a step forward this year, and in turn, Evans just eats. And I think he's pretty underrated right now at 2.08. He's always a guy I like to target. Like on the turn in the early second round, you can get Odell Beckham there or Juju, but Mike Evans, I think he has a very, very productive year this season.
I agree. I'll take Mike Evans over Juju. I almost would take him over OBJ. I don't know about that. I'd have to think about that for a second, but I like Mike Evans a lot. The big thing is that I love T.Y. Hilton as well, and I think Indianapolis is going to have a phenomenal year. I think T.Y. Hilton's going to flourish, so it's really picking 1A, 1B for me. I have Mike Evans and T.Y. Hilton ranked very high in my rankings. I don't know. I would have to go with Mike Evans as well, but the consensus is that AB at 207 might be a little high for me, so it doesn't seem that I'm going to be getting AB on a lot of my teams, but I do think he can have a productive year. Let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr., a guy that we just mentioned. He's going to Cleveland. They got Baker Mayfield, a phenomenal quarterback, as we all know. He's leaving, Eli Manning, who was awful. I was just watching a tweet today where it was the best of his incomplete passes to Odell Beckham Jr. And it was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. I recommend searching that on Twitter and trying to find that tweet. I don't know who would put it out. Sorry for whoever did, but it was a great tweet. It was phenomenal. But now Odell Beckham's going to Cleveland, a team that everyone expects to, flourish, just vomit offense all day, every day. They expect this team to be great. They have the star power. They have the mojo right now. They're dangerous, as Baker would say. What do you think about OBJ, and especially at that turn?
He's a guy, when we did our mock draft episode, I picked him, I think, with the 10th pick. So I've been pretty high on OBJ, and his ADP has kind of risen now towards the top of the second round. So if you can get him at that turn, that is insane value, and I'm totally on board for it. As I've said in recent episodes, Cleveland offense, that's going to be a fantasy goldmine this year. With Kitchens running the offense again this year, I think that really all those players like Landry, he's going to be productive again. David Njoku, I think, can take a step up this year. And then, of course, OBJ. And like you said, he was quarterback proof with Eli Manning. He's probably one of the few guys we'll talk about today that we can say is quarterback proof. And now just imagining the possibilities with Baker Mayfield, someone who's going to force in the ball and can get it in the ball. Odell Beckham could be in for a career year. And I think that his production this year is definitely going to outlast last year's.
Odell Beckham Jr., Julio Jones, who has more PPR points this year.
Oh man, that's tough.
It is tough.
I think Jones, just because I think there might be a learning curve there in the first few weeks with Beckham and Baker Mayfield, whereas Jones and Matt Ryan have been tearing it up for years now. I think Jones is just a more safe bet, especially he got his touchdown production up towards the end of last year as well.
Yeah, he did, and I've been redoing my rankings, getting ready for the late June, rankings release that I'm going to put out. Couldn't think of that word for a second. And I got Julio number 1. I'm all about Julio this year. I got Julio number 1 over Nuke, over Adams. Michael Thomas is my number 2, over Nuke, over Adams. Bring it on. I love the NFC South. I've said it so much. I said it last week, John. You weren't here. I was talking with Connor, but I've said it a couple times with you anyway. I love the NFC South. Get everyone you can from that in the passing regime. It's all wide receivers and all quarterbacks in that division and Christian McCaffrey. So and Alvin Kamara. And I definitely recommend grabbing as many NFC South players as you can. Speaking of NFC South players, Latavius Murray leaves the Vikings, goes to the Saints. He's now backing up Alvin Kamara. When Alvin Kamara played without Mark Ingram, he was a beast. He ate. He got all the carries. And people are worried, I've been seeing around, that they don't think Alvin Kamara is going to come in and just take a bell cow amount of reps. They assume Latavius Murray is going to take the Mark Ingram role and get just as much volume as Mark Ingram was in New Orleans. In my opinion, Mark Ingram is a lot better than Latavius Murray. I do not think Latavius Murray is going to jump in and immediately get 15 carries a game. I think that's absurd to think that as an NFL fan, to think Latavius Murray is going to jump right in and take 15 carries. It's ridiculous. When you have Alvin Kamara, you're going to use them. Sean Payton knows that. He's not going to run it with them a ton, but he's going to use them very smart. He's going to throw them out in screens. He's going to use them all over the field. Kamara is a phenomenal running back, maybe one of the best running backs in the game, compared to Saquon, Zeke, Alvin Kamara. Like, he is the man. In a team that scores a lot of offense, who likes to run the ball as well. Sean Payton is not afraid to run the ball, and I don't think he's going to be afraid to run it with Alvin Kamara. So with Latavius Murray, I read as being like a deep sleeper and going where he is in the draft. I just can't buy into it. He's not a pass catcher like Mark Ingram was, in my opinion. Mark Ingram was super underappreciated, as we've mentioned before, in the pass-catching ability factor. I do not think Latavius Murray is that kind of guy. I'm not buying in on Latavius Murray at all. John, what do you say about that?
I'm right there with you. He was only relevant the past 2 years because Dalvin Cook really couldn't stay healthy for the majority of the season. And that's really the only reason why I think Murray still has relevance to this point. But yeah, I don't see how you can, if you're going to run the ball, if you're the Saints, you're going to run the ball. I don't see how you can dismiss so many carries away from Kamara and give them to Latavius Murray. That just doesn't seem right. And like you said, Murray is not even close to the caliber of player as Mark Ingram. So at the end of the day, I think we could see a situation where Murray doesn't even eclipse 100 touches by the end of the year. I mean, he doesn't have pass-catching prowess, so I don't really see any opportunities where he's going to steal legitimate snaps from Alvin Kamara. I think it's going to be Kamara's show. I think he could very well be towards the top of the league in touches. And just looking at ADP right now, Murray is going the same spot as Kareem Hunt, and I would very well rather have 8 weeks of Kareem Hunt than a full season of Latavius Murray.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, it's something I just found out, though, Kareem Hunt. Is he suspended for the first 8 weeks or the first 10 weeks?
I thought it was 8.
I as well did, but just saw something saying 10, and it kind of changed my opinion on Kareem Hunt. If he's out 10 weeks, that means you're getting him for 6 weeks. Is he really going to step right in and out-duel Nick Chubb in the last 6 weeks? The one thing to think about, though, is if you think you can. So let's hypothetically say he is out for 10 weeks. I don't know. John, are you looking that up real quick? Because I am not. But say he's out for 10 weeks, and Nick Chubb, is healthy the whole time. There's no way he's going to come in and be a beast. I think he's getting drafted way too high. Same with Latavius Murray, who I'm not done with, and I'm going to cycle back to real quick. But Kareem Hunt, the big thing, though, is if you can sit him out on your team for 10 weeks, the running back position is a very hard-nosed position, as we all know. And injuries occur quite often. If it's something you want to take a gamble on and sit on him for 10 weeks, Nick Chubb might not be healthy come week 11. And maybe Kareem Hunt does just step right in. It's a gamble, and it's one that some people will play and some people won't. For me, I want that revolving bench spot. I don't want to sit on a guy for 10 weeks. It's so hard. It was hard enough last year to sit on Ingram or Edelman for 4 weeks or 3 weeks, or Aaron Jones for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It was hard enough. You're going to tell me I got to sit on someone for 10 weeks without, while guys like Philip Lindsay fly by and this and that and this and that. I don't know, man. I can't do that. I need that revolving spot. I'm way too much of a tinkerer than to sit on my lineup and say, I know he's going to be good in 11 weeks. I promise you. Can you really sit down with that?
I'm all on board for stashing players. I was big on Edelman last year and Ingram last year. I just love the potential these type of picks present to your fantasy team. If you're getting, so I did look it up, Nick, and everything I'm seeing is 8 games.
Okay, 8 games. I was wrong. Okay.
If you can structurally build your team well in the first few rounds, or not the first few, but the first 6 or 7 rounds, and then still get a guy like Kareem Hunt who's going to be back in time for the playoff stretch, and then be back for the playoffs. I think that's just a type of player who can really elevate your fantasy team. And I just love the fact that if, say, you do take a flyer on a guy like Hunt and you're successful the first few weeks he's out, you go like 5-3, 6-2, and then the rest of the league, it's like, surprise, now I have Kareem Hunt. And I think, like you said, with Nick Chubb, I think when Hunt's going to have the fresh legs, and I think we very well could see Cleveland in a spot where they're vying for the division title or maybe a wild card spot. They're going to want to get the most out of their players, and I think that's a time where we could see Kareem Hunt maybe get more touches than Nick Chubb, as you want to preserve Chubb's health and you want to keep him fresh for the playoffs as well. So I think when Hunt comes back, I think it could be the Kareem Hunt show in Cleveland.
So the only thing I would say is, like, I agree. I love stashing the players. Like, I was in on Edelman and Aaron Jones, Mark Ingram last year. But all those guys, well, maybe not even Mark Ingram, but Julian Edelman for sure, who was the main guy I was big on stashing, was going to come back and you knew what he was going to do. You knew he was going to come back and you knew what he was going to be in that New England offense. Kareem Hunt, I'm stashing and then still hoping. I don't even know. I've never even seen, like, Mark Ingram, like, you're stashing. I know he wasn't the running back one, but we'd seen him be the, a running back two kind of with Alvin Kamara in his rookie year, Kamara's rookie year, and Ingram was still like a top 8 running back. So you knew the possibility was there, but he wasn't a solidified number running back one. We don't even know what Hunt's going to be. So, I mean, yeah, he could, like, join this team, but is the chemistry there? Is he going to, like, mesh well with the team? Latavius Murray, Kareem Hunt, Miles Sanders, Ronald Jones. 4 best running backs available, sitting at 709. Who you taking?
That's Kareem Hunt all day. I think.
Day? Give me Miles Sanders. Give me the rookie in Philly. Jordan Howard doesn't scare me whatsoever. Jordan Howard scares me as much as, I don't know, someone who doesn't scare me. I was going to try to think of something funny, but I'm going to come up blank. So, anyways, just give me Miles Sanders. He's going to be a beast. He's going to be a beast. Why would you not take him?
I'm a big Eagles guy, but I'll even bet that Howard finishes with more fantasy points than Sanders this year.
What? Miles Sanders is going to come show up in the preseason and earn the starting spot. Very similar to what Jordan Howard did in his rookie year. It's going to be Miles Sanders, full circle. NFL loves to repeat itself. It's something we got to always remember. NFL loves to repeat itself. If you think you've seen something before, it's probably going to happen again. And this Miles Sanders is the perfect case, I'm telling you. So I'm taking Miles Sanders, but you're going Kareem Hunt. Let's get back on track. We did actually discuss a few players there, too. I'm glad we got Hunt in there. I'm glad we ended up talking about Latavius Murray. We did kind of talk on Mark Ingram a little bit. But what I want to talk about is another wide receiver. Do you think Adam Humphries going from Tampa Bay to Tennessee, one of the highest paid free agents this year, do you think he's going to be successful in Tennessee? Like, do you think A.J. Brown's going to come in there and kind of do what Adam Humphries does better than him early? Or are they going to try to push the ball to Corey Davis? Is Tennessee even going to throw the ball more than 5 times a game this year? Like, what are we doing today with Tennessee? Like, are you going for Humphries at all in anything?
Absolutely not. I think he was definitely one of the more overpaid free agents this year. I mean, the market's always going to result in guys getting overpaid. But like you said, is Tennessee going to throw the ball more than 5 times a game? I mean, just looking last year, Tampa Bay threw it 4th most in the league, whereas Tennessee threw it 31st, so 2nd worst in the league in terms of passing attempts. So the volume really isn't there for Humphries. I don't think he's going to outperform Corey Davis. Like you said, A.J. Brown, I like a lot. It might take a few weeks for him to kind of get cemented into that offense. But at the end of the day, I think A.J. Brown gets more targets than Adam Humphries in the second half of the season. So Humphries, I mean, we've seen what he can do. I don't think he's going to outperform anything he's done in the past. He's like a 50-catch, 600-yard guy, maybe a couple touchdowns. So I don't think there's really much upside with him, and I don't think that the value is really there with him either in drafts.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely... Oh my gosh, John's breaking his computer over there, everyone. Don't worry. John, are you still there?
My cat's trying to walk on my laptop.
He's trying to make an appearance, or she is. I don't know. But, I agree. I definitely am not going anywhere near Humphries. He is not even on my radar, nor is darn near anyone in Tennessee. I'll talk about Derrick Henry. We won't talk about him right now, but maybe in a show coming up. He's okay this year. He's okay. Normally, I'm just not a Derrick Henry guy, but I'm starting to kind of buy into him a little bit more. But anyways, There's 3 quarterbacks that are really going to be starting, maybe potentially, on new teams. Nick Foles goes from the Eagles, as you're well aware of, to the Jaguars. Josh Rosen goes from the Cardinals to the Dolphins. Case Keenum goes from the Broncos to the Redskins. Do you think Case Keenum, Josh Rosen, not Nick Foles, but do you think Rosen or Keenum start week 1, either of them?
That's tough. I think it really just depends how training camp goes and preseason. More likely to start week 1, I'd probably say, I don't even know. I think there's a strong chance we could see Ryan Fitzpatrick start week 1 for Miami.
The reports are coming out that he's doing better than Rosen. Am I right?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think with Rosen, we might see him more towards the second half of the year, maybe a bit sooner than that. But I'm not to avoid your question, but I'm not really on either of these guys. I think it's only a matter of time before Haskins takes over in Washington. And even when Keenum had that really good year in Minnesota, he wasn't even a quarterback 1 in that season. And Washington's supporting cast, while it has improved, I mean, it's still nothing to write home about. That offensive line was a disaster last year with injuries. So staying healthy for that offensive front is really essential for that offense. And with Rosen, I love Rosen. I love him as a prospect. He and Baker Mayfield were both top 5 prospects for me, if I recall correctly. But he was terrible last year in Arizona, and now he goes to Miami, where it's probably a downgrade in supporting cast, I would say. Miami might have the worst receiving core in the league. So as much as I like Josh Rosen, as much as I want him to succeed, I just don't see that happening, at least this year in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. To answer the question at hand, Keenum, Rosen, I bet Keenum starts week 1. I bet Rosen doesn't. I bet Rosen is starting by the end of the year, and I think Keenum is benched by the end of the year. Give me Haskins very early, 2 or 3 games in. Give me Rosen at the start. Give me week 1 Rosen. I think they're just going to pull the trigger. I think Fitz is just there more as a mentor. They can come out with all the reports they want and all this, but it's going to be Rosen week 1. I mean, they didn't trade for him to sit. Like, that's just not, what's going to happen. So, but then, yeah, and neither of them are fantasy relevant in any way, shape, or form. I don't care if Rosen is starting. He's got some good wide receivers. Don't get me wrong. I love those speed receivers in Miami. Albert Wilson, Kenny Stills. Like, I'm not going to talk about Devontae Parker, but I like Kenny Stills. I like Albert Wilson a lot. So I'm all in on them. But are you buying Nick Foles fantasy at all in Jacksonville?
Nick Foles is a legend and will forever be in my heart just because of what he's done in Philly. But I mean, he's never succeeded anywhere outside of Philly, so I don't really see him succeeding as the guy in Jacksonville. Especially their supporting cast it's all right, I guess, but it's nothing right. It's not like what he had in Philly. I think the only bright spot in terms of fantasy relevance is that he's reunited with John DeFilippo, who was the quarterback coach in Philly when he had all that success and led the Eagles to the Super Bowl. But I don't see Foles finishing as a quarterback 1, of course, this year, and probably not even a top 20 quarterback.
I agree. I'm definitely avoiding Nick Foles, and as everyone should as well. But that's a nice little knowledge drop there. See, that's something I didn't know or didn't think about at least, and that's good for like NFL purposes. You know what I mean? Like, that's good for winning games. Maybe not fantasy, but that's good for winning games. Another guy I want to talk about though is Tevin Coleman. What is going on in San Francisco? What's the running back situation going to be like? We have 45 different running backs on that team that are, reliable running backs. We have a plethora of wide receivers that can be a reliable wide receiver. There's a ton of mouths to feed. Is Tevin Coleman, though, let's remember his history with Kyle Shanahan, and now he's coming back to join forces. Are we expecting Coleman? Are we expecting McKinnon? Are we expecting neither? Like, is this like too much of a 50-50 time split that we're just going to avoid them all and maybe get Burr? Like, for me, I like Coleman. I like Coleman more than I like McKinnon a lot. Breida's all right. Like, we can't forget about Breida, but I'm not taking him unless I'm in a deep dynasty, like, startup league. But I'm all about Coleman in redraft in regards to the San Francisco running backs. And because it's such a toss-up, his ADP is pretty low. And so if you're going to be taking like a flyer on a guy, where's his ADP at? I thought it was 7th round last I knew. I don't have it right in front of me, but last I knew it was like 7th round. And if you're talking a running back 4, like that's great. Give it to me. So, 6th round. So It's a little high, actually. I liked him a little bit better more in the 7th round. If he falls to me in the 7th round, I like him. Late 6th round, maybe. It depends on what I drafted early. But if Tevin Coleman's going to be my running back 2, that's scary. If he's going to be my running back 3, I'm kind of on board with it. John, are you on board with him at all, or no?
It's so tough to gauge, but out of that backfield, I probably would lean Coleman. He's a guy I've always favored over Devontae Freeman in past seasons, just based on ADP. I always thought he was a good bargain to target later in drafts, but it's tough. As you said, he has the history of Kyle Shanahan. But then again, I just look at they didn't really they didn't commit a big financial status really to Coleman. I mean, it's a 2-year deal, $10 million. So I mean, they're giving more money to McKinnon right now. They're more invested in McKinnon. But obviously, coming off a year-long injury, it's really hard to say. I think he absolutely could be a bell cow back, as he's proven in the past when Freeman has dealt with injuries. He was running back 18 last year. So as an RB2 option or a flex option, I don't mind Coleman. I still like him. I think really any running back under Shanahan is gonna be productive, as Matt Breida tore it up last year out of nowhere. Yeah. And he's certainly someone, as you said, to still consider, especially in the later rounds.
Heck, their 4-stringer Jeff Wilson didn't do too bad. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, they got running backs out there coming out of their ass. I don't know what to do with that. If everyone gets 10 carries, they all could be successful running backs, like in fantasy. It's weird. So it's hard. So let's say like Tevin Coleman, late 6th round, going to be your running back 3. Would you go with them? Would you try to avoid them? I mean, you can see who's under him. We're looking basically the same kind of people we were just talking about.
Yeah, I might lean. I was going to say I might lean Rashad Penny, but
I like Rashad Penny a lot this year. That's a guy I can't wait till we talk about. Maybe we'll do like a sophomore season theme, and if we get that voted on, he's going to be. I like Penny a lot. I'm fading Carson everywhere. It seems like everyone else got on the Carson train, but he gives me that like I don't know. He gives me the like idea of like Peyton Barber last year, where he was the running back 1, but is he really even going to be worthwhile? You know, and that's kind of what I get from Chris Carson. So I'm getting on Penny. You like Penny too this year?
I definitely do like Penny. I wasn't even the biggest fan of him coming out of San Diego State. Thought he was a 4th round type guy, early day 3 type guy, and then I was shocked, as I'm sure most were, when he went in the 1st round. That was something.
Yeah, the Seahawks love to shock people. This year, LJ Collier in the 1st round, I was shocked by that. However, theme, Rashad Penny Senior Bowl 2 years ago, LJ Collier Senior Bowl this year. Seattle loves the Mobile boys, so that's just something to think about when we're down in Mobile. But anyways, I do like Rashad Penny as well. I'm very much skipping over Lamar Miller. I will have no takes of Lamar Miller this year. I am not even going to probably talk about him too much. If anything, I'll be talking more about Deonta Foreman, who I think is going to take over. Tevin Coleman, late 6th round. If you're looking best, you're looking Lamar Miller, Rashad Penny, Latavius Murray, Kareem Hunt, Miles Sanders, Ronald Jones, Jordan Howard, LaShawn McCoy, Royce Freeman, Jerry McKinnon. List goes on. Tevin Coleman's the one who has the most upside. Maybe Rashad Penny, like right next to him. And in my opinion, Miles Sanders. But I don't want to reach on Miles Sanders at the late 6th round. I'd rather try to get him in the late 7th where his ADP is. I'll take Coleman late 6th round for sure. I actually take him over there. Being ADP'd over him is Darrell Henderson. And I can't buy in to Henderson over Tevin Coleman. Like, I get that Gurley's going to probably see a lighter workload. Means we're going to see more of the backup running backs. But that doesn't mean Henderson's going to see 16, 20 carries a game. Like, at all. He's going to see more pass protection plays. He's not going to see the run too much. And why are you drafting him over Tevin Coleman, who has a legitimate chance to be a running back 1 this year? I can't buy into it. John, are you buying into Henderson?
Absolutely not. I loved him coming out of college, but this whole Gurley situation obviously has led to a skyrocket in ADP for Henderson, but I'm definitely not taking a flyer on him that early.
Are you taking a flyer on Gurley in the mid-2nd round right now?
See, I might. I think that really has so much upside. I mean, it's risky just based on all the reports, but we've seen what Gurley can do on the field the past 3 or 4 years. I think it was RB1 the past 2. So, I mean, if you're getting the top running back from the past 2 seasons in the mid-2nd round, that's pretty good value.
Are you buying into what the reports are saying? Are you like Are you looking at it like, wow, this is really happening? Or are you looking at it like, man, the media is trying to blow some stuff up to get some clicks and rankings? You know what I mean? Which way are you leaning on that?
I definitely would say more so towards the latter. I mean, all these reports you have to take with a grain of salt, although it is worrisome just because of what we saw last year and how C.J. Anderson was utilized way more than Gurley down the final stretch, and especially in the playoffs. That was just appalling to see. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Gurley situation shapes out, especially in the early weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, Gurley, and that's like, I wouldn't be too worried about the reports unless I saw it with my own eyes, and we saw it with our own eyes. We sure did. We sure as hell did. National TV, we saw it. Spotlight Super Bowl, we saw it. So,
I mean, Damien Williams is going 2 picks after Todd Gurley. That's insane. No one on earth could have predicted that at this time last year.
No, but Damien Williams, that kind of leads me into the next guy I wanted to talk about real quick, was Carlos Hyde. Are we buying in on Carlos Hyde at all? Like I am. I'm all about the Hyde train. Get me leading that motherfucker. Sorry, let me lead that. Let me just lead that. I want to be the Carlos Hyde master. I think he's going to be a successful running back in Kansas City. He had a little bit of a down year, traded, just didn't find his niche in Cleveland and Jacksonville, where what we saw, that he provided in San Francisco. He's still a PPR machine. I think Damien Williams is a very good running back. And I like them both just because I like the Kansas City offense. One of them is going to be successful, so I don't mind taking a flyer on Carlos Hyde because the upside is so high for him. But what about you, John?
Yeah, I'm absolutely all over Hyde this year. I think he has the lottery ticket potential in the 10th round right now. He's going after Ito Smith and Deontay Foreman, who I know you like, but I'm not high on at all. But he was really, really good in San Francisco, and I think people forget that. I mean, 2016 was RB18, 2017 RB8. So that's just 2 years removed from a top 10 running back season. And going back to 2017, he caught 59 passes. And I think his pass catching ability is something that's kind of undersold right now. And I think it's just revitalization time for him. I think he's going to go to Kansas City in that system where it's really running back friendly, as we saw with Kareem Hunt in his first couple of years. And then Damien Williams last year came on really strong. But just comparing Williams' ADP at 2.07 to Hyde's in the late 10th round, I would definitely prefer Hyde at this point. I think that their volume is going to be a lot more split than most anticipate.
I agree. I'm actually going to be reaching on Hyde a lot because, to be honest, I'll take Hyde over any of those guys we're damn near talking about, like Coleman, Penny. But I'll take those two over Hyde. But I'll take Hyde over Hunt. I'll take him over Sanders, Ronald Jones, Jordan Howard, LaShawn McCoy, Royce Freeman, Jerick McKinnon, Austin Eckler. Like, I'll go down this list. I want Hyde way more than any of those backups. I don't know why his ADP is so low, in my opinion. Just everyone is loving the Damien Williams train, but
that's and too.
I don't know, man. Williams did good, but I don't know. Give me Hyde. At that point, I'm going to reach for Hyde, and then I'll keep waiting because there's a lot of guys down here that I like, which is Devin Singletary in Buffalo. Like, I know they got Yeldon, they got Frank Gore, they got Shady McCoy, but I like Devin Singletary to kind of break through in that group. I think Alexander Madison's going to have a very good year because I'm not buying that Delvin Cook's going to play 16 games this year. When has he showed me that he can do that? Once he shows me he can do that, then maybe I'll buy into it. But until then, I'm going to always be trying to target his backups specifically. I like Justice Hill in Baltimore. I think he could be all right. There's just some guys down there, so I'm going to be reaching for Carlos Hyde. Deonta Foreman's right over him. Why don't you like Foreman? You're the Texans writer. You got to, fill me in on this knowledge.
Yeah, Foreman, I mean, it's just been a really slow start for him. He was a one-year wonder in college and dealt with injuries and suspension. He's just really struggled to stay on the field, and I don't know. I just don't see how much. So
then are you buying into Lamar Miller for fantasy?
See, I'm not buying into really any of these running backs. I think they really needed to target a pass-catching back in the later rounds. I think James Williams would have been a perfect fit for that offense. They just really need a guy who can catch the ball. And I think in Houston, they've always been adamant about giving Miller the majority of the workload. And I think that's kind of what we're going to continue to see this year as he's in a contract year. They're going to want to run him for as much as he's worth and get the most out of him. So, I mean, Deontay Foreman, he's kind of a wild card at this point. And I just, for his ADP, I think that's a little high for him just because he hasn't really proven anything in his first 2 years in the league.
Yeah. Lamar Miller, 28 years old. He's actually younger than I thought he was. I guess I could see him. You're right, contract year, 4th year in Houston, 8th year in the NFL. Maybe we do just yet. But even when they do keep pounding with him, he's getting less than 100 yards, barely eclipsing 900 yards. He hasn't scored more than 5 touchdowns in the last 3 seasons. Like, he's just not a guy I want. I don't even care. Normally, I just want the guys with the volume. That's my big thing when it comes to running backs. But I don't want Lamar Miller. I would rather try to take a flyer upside anywhere. I'm right there with you. I'm avoiding him. I'll take the flyer on Foreman. I think he is going to come out of the gates this year. But let's talk about this. Late round wide receivers. You're looking to kind of pick up some depth. You got 2 guys on your mind. Everyone paying attention here. It's Devin Funchess and Dante Moncrief. Going around the same time. Who are you preferring? Funchess in Indy, leaving Carolina, though he's got Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle, Nyheim Hines, T.Y. Hilton, a ton of different people to take catches away from the red zone. But then there's Dante Moncrief, who has, James Washington. They just drafted Deontay Johnson. There's a couple boys in Pittsburgh, too, that can take away from Moncrief's production. So are you taking the gamble on Funchess or Moncrief?
It's Funchess, 100%. I think Moncrief is being a little bit overdrafted right now. I mean, reports are all saying that he's been impressive in camp and he's going to be a wide receiver too. But I mean, James Washington is still there. They drafted Deontay Johnson in the 3rd round. So I just don't think Moncrief is really going to cement himself as that wide receiver 2 in that offense. I mean, he hasn't really produced since his days in Indy with Andrew Luck. So I mean, I'm really cooling on Moncrief. I don't think that's a good selection. Whereas Funchess at the end of the 12th round, that's very, very good value. I think he's going to go to Indy and produce, probably have a career year. Honestly, he's signed that 1-year contract, so he's also on a contract year, and I just think he's going to benefit from playing with Andrew Luck and that high octane passing offense. He's just a big slot guy. I think he's going to take red zone targets away from Ebron and Jack Doyle. I mean, has at least 4 touchdowns every season, and 2 years ago, 8 touchdowns. Funchess, I think he really came into his own last year, so I love the fit in Indy, and I think that's one of the best value picks in your fantasy football draft, Funchess at the end of the 12th round.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fully on board with it. I like Moncrief. I like him. I'm not sold on him this year. I want to be sold on James Washington. I watched as much film as I could on him just so I could convince myself that he was the guy I thought he could be as a wide receiver too. I'm not sold on Washington or Moncrief. I'm actually kind of wanting to take the flyer on Deontay Johnson. I think he's going to come out and be the stud. Pittsburgh wants fast-ass wide receivers. They want Juju. They want Antonio Brown. They want Santonio. They want fast receivers that can sprint. That's what Deontay Johnson can do. He can sprint. So give him me over James Washington and over Moncrief at their current values. I just know the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh is going to be great. You just don't know who it's going to be. Where when it comes to Funchess, you know he's going to be the wide receiver 2. I'm not too worried about Paris Campbell coming in and taking a ton of volume, though I do like him. I just don't think he's going to break down Funchess in any way. I'll take Funchess as a flyer in the late rounds for sure. Let's talk about some other late round flyers, though. I'm going to throw out a couple names, and any of these kind of spark your interest. We had Chris Conley move from Kansas City to Jacksonville. He's now only battling really Marquise Lee, Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, DJ Shark for a wide receiver position on the Jacksonville team. But he got paid a good amount of money, so Jacksonville wants to do something with him. After him, Danny Amendola leaves Miami, the old veteran here, going to Detroit, guaranteed basically the slot position in Detroit, which has been an offensive passing team in years past. Do we think that he's going to be successful? And what about Chris Hogan? Going from New England to Carolina, is he going to be anything special? Or maybe at least a couple spot starts? Are we buying into Conley, Amendola, or Hogan at all?
I'm really not buying into any of those guys. Out of the 3, I probably would lean towards Hogan. But my problem with Amendola, I mean, he was pretty bad in Miami last year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Stafford hasn't really been a guy to target the slot receiver all that often. I mean, I know they haven't had the highly regarded slot receivers there in Detroit, but that's not really a spot that he's targeted often. I mean, Galladay and Marvin Jones are going to see the bulk of the targets, and Hawkinson.
Before that, it was Golden Tate. he was definitely and Tate played out of the slot quite often, but no, he's not. He likes that deep ball. So agreed. I'm not in on Amendola as well.
And then with Hogan, I mean, he goes from New England where it was a weird wide receiving core there the past few years, just a lot of guys cycling in and out. But Hogan, he kept a consistent role there. I mean, and you look at Carolina's receiving core, it's not the greatest, so I think he could carve out a decent role there. I think he should see a decent amount of volume behind DJ Moore and maybe Greg Olsen. We'll see how he does coming back off injury. But I mean, during his career in New England, Hogan averaged over 100 fantasy points per year, 114 to be exact, which would be wide receiver 30 last year. So, I mean, he could still be maybe a decent flex option, probably a guy who could provide decent depth at receiver, but I wouldn't say anything more than that for Hogan.
Yeah, I agree. We have just a couple minutes left. This has been a great show, John. We have one last guy I wanted to bring up real quick, Le'Veon Bell, going 110 right now. Do you like him over Mixon, Connor, Gurley, Cook?
That's tough. I think I would just lean towards like a Mixon at that juncture, just because I think Bell is probably the biggest risk in the first round. But I mean, on the flip side, he could pay off huge. His receiving prowess alone makes him obviously one of the best running backs in the league, which is crucial in PPR leagues. You always want those pass catching running backs. And I mean, the offense is most likely going to operate through Bell. I mean, could be leading the league in touches. That would not surprise me in the slightest. But I probably would just lean towards Mixon just because he took a huge step forward last year, and I think we kind of know what we're getting with him at this point, whereas Bell, he's out of the league for a year, so we're not really sure.
Yeah. I like Bell. I like him in PPR, so I'm going to differ. I'm taking Bell over all those guys. I'll probably take Bell over David Johnson just because I'm not sold on Kyler Murray in Arizona. My keeper league, I got 3 keepers going into this year. I'm keeping David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. Think it's a good team?
So I guess the DJ and Bell, those are going to be first and second round picks?
So it's no picks. It's it's keeper. There's certain contracts, and that's it, baby. So that team is stacked. Just wanted to gloat that real quick. John, was there any old face in a new place you didn't get to talk about that you wanted to? We got about a minute and a half.
I guess I'll talk about Deshaun Jackson. I don't think he's going to be how he used to, the prime DJ we saw in his first stint in Philly. But I mean, looking back on last year, he averaged more points per game than Chris Godwin, Corey Davis, Mike Williams, even current teammate now Nelson Aguilar. And I think really the speed is still there with Deshaun. We haven't really seen him regress all that much. So even in a crowded receiving core, I think he'll be productive. I would definitely consider him as a flex play. But a question for you, do you think he's over or under 4 touchdowns this year? He hasn't eclipsed that since 2014.
That's a stat I did not know, and that's kind of crazy. I'm going to say more because Wentz loves to air that ball out. Give me Djax for 6 touchdowns this year and a quite surprising big year. Kind of the last big year, though, for Djax, in my opinion. This is it. This is the epitome. It's declined after this. The guy I want to talk about real quick, Smoke Brown in Buffalo. Make sure you're targeting him. I like him a lot. He is fast. Josh Allen also has an arm. Smoke Brown can run. Watch those two. They will have a great connection. We don't have a lot of time. I appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you're going to the website, laredzoneport.com. You can find us on the podcast section. It's a great website. They're doing a lot of big things. It's a small website right now, but it's growing exponentially fast. It's something you want to be on board with right now. I appreciate you guys listening. John, where do they follow you at?
You can follow me on Twitter at JohnValenciaBF.
That's my man. Follow me at Nick Faber NFL, and make sure you follow the podcast at RZR Fantasy NFL. Make sure you vote on our theme so we know what you want to hear. Thank you so much for listening, and y'all have a great rest of your day.
Peace.